Cora Jennings came to Sweetgrass Ranch as a stranger's signature on a marriage contract, and Thomas Calloway, still guarding a heart he'd buried alongside his first wife, swore to himself he'd never let this arrangement become anything more than a roof and a routine. Neither of them expected the quiet way his hand would find hers over the dinner table, or the night his voice would break admitting he loved her, until a banker stood in their yard threatening to tear apart everything they'd built, and Cora and Tom found themselves standing shoulder to shoulder, no longer strangers bound by paper, but two people who had chosen each other completely. Cora Jennings had read the letter so many times the folds had gone soft as cloth. Sweetgrass Ranch, 12 miles east of Miles City, Montana territory. A name and a distance, and beneath it, a man's careful handwriting promising a roof, a wage of sorts, and honesty in place of affection he could not yet offer. She had grown up in the Sisters of Charity Asylum in St. Louis, in a long room with 30 other cots, after fever took her parents when she was 6. She remembered almost nothing of them now, only a hum her mother used while braiding hair. What she remembered clearly was the matron reminding her every birthday that she was fortunate to have a roof at all. When the Stockmen's Aid Society wrote looking for a capable young woman willing to marry a respectable widower, Cora volunteered before the letter finished being read aloud. She had never had a family of her own choosing. At 18, she meant to build one, even if it had to start with a stranger's signature. The wagon that met her stagecoach was driven by a boy named Hank, who said little the whole ride. Sweetgrass Ranch came into view slowly. A low house, a sway-backed barn, corrals stretching toward hills gone gold with early summer grass. A man stood on the porch step, tall and sun-worn, hat in his hands rather than on his head. "Miss Jennings." His voice was low, rough at the edges. "Thomas Calloway. I'd have met you at the depot, but the calving ran long this year." He didn't offer his hand. He looked at her the way a man looks at a debt he intends to honor, but cannot yet feel glad about. "Mr. Calloway," she said, and stepped down without waiting for help. He carried her trunk up the steps himself, though Hank offered, and set it just inside the door with a care that surprised her. Not the careless drop of a man handling someone else's belongings, but the deliberate set-down of a man who noticed things. "Kitchen's through there," he said, pointing. "Well's out back if you need water before I get the barrel filled. Wyatt's room is the small one off the hall. Yours is past it." He paused. "I had Hank's mother air it out this week. Didn't want you arriving to a closed-up room." It was a small kindness, but Cora noted it the way she noted most things, carefully, without letting it show on her face. Kindness offered too eagerly could turn out to be currency a man expected repaid. She had learned that lesson more than once in St. Louis. Inside, the house was clean but unfinished in some way she couldn't name, until she saw the rocking chair by the west window, its seat worn pale. A shawl the color of dried lavender hung over its back. Dust settled on the folds. "That was Eleanor's," Tom said, following her gaze. "My wife, passed 2 years back." He said nothing more, and Cora asked nothing more. At supper, beans, cornbread, coffee gone bitter, a boy's place at the table sat empty. Cora glanced toward the window and caught a small shape crouched on the peak of the barn roof, knees drawn up, watching the house the way a hawk watches ground. It hasn't decided to leave. "He'll come down when he's hungry enough," Tom said, though his eyes stayed on the barn a moment longer than his words allowed. Cora covered a plate for him anyway, and said nothing about it. After supper, while Tom saw to the horses, Cora walked the porch to get her bearings and found a garter snake coiled neatly inside her boot, left there where she'd set it by the door. She didn't scream. She lifted the boot, carried it to the yard, and shook the snake loose into the grass with the same brisk efficiency she might have used shaking out a rug. When she turned, Wyatt was watching from the barn loft window, waiting, she understood, to see what kind of woman his father had brought home. "Wrong snake for scaring me," she called up to him, not unkindly. "Garter snakes don't bite worth mentioning. My asylum matron kept worse in the coal cellar to keep the boys from stealing biscuits." The loft window shut without a word, but she thought she caught the shape of surprise in it before it closed. Later, carrying her trunk in from the wagon, Tom paused at the door, hat still in his hands. "I should tell you plain, since you'll hear it soon enough from someone in town. There's a note against this place. Comes due at harvest. Bank holds it." He said it fast, like a man setting down a weight he'd rather not be carrying in front of company. "I don't say it to frighten you off, only so you're not caught off guard by it later." "I don't frighten easy," Cora said. "Not anymore." Something shifted in his face. Surprise, maybe, or the beginning of respect, and he nodded once before heading back out to the barn. Cora stood alone in the doorway of a house that was not yet hers, holding a debt she hadn't earned, and thinking of a boy who wouldn't come down, and understood that whatever she'd traveled here to find would not come easy or soon. That night, alone in the small room off the kitchen, not the room beside Tom's, she noted, but a separate one entirely. Cora let herself cry for the first time since St. Louis, not from sorrow, from the strange, hollow relief of having arrived somewhere at all. Outside, she heard the barn door creak, small footsteps crossing the yard, the soft scrape of a covered plate lifted from the table. She let the boy have his privacy. Tonight, it was enough that he'd come down at all. By the second week, Cora understood that Wyatt Calloway had decided she would not be staying long enough to matter. He left frogs in her boots and said nothing about it at breakfast. He unmade his bed each morning after she'd made it. When she asked him a direct question, he answered Tom instead, as though she hadn't spoken. Cora did not force it. She had lived long enough in rooms full of children guarding what little was theirs to know a wall built from grief doesn't fall because someone pushes on it. So she stayed. She left his favorite biscuit at the edge of his plate. She mended the knee of his trousers without asking how he'd torn it, though the answer, a dare involving the top rail of the corral, reached her anyway through Hank's laughing retelling in the yard. One afternoon, sweeping, she caught the ghost of chalk on his slate board before he'd finished erasing it. "Not my mother." She set the broom against the wall and stood still a moment, feeling the words land somewhere beneath her ribs. Then she finished sweeping. She found Eleanor's mending basket in a cupboard, needles gone rusted, a child's shirt still pinned mid-hem, abandoned. She closed the cupboard gently, the way one closes a door on a room where someone is still sleeping, and fetched her own basket instead. Tom kept his own distance, doling out warmth in small, deliberate amounts, as if a larger measure might cost more than he could afford to lose again. He fixed her door hinge without being asked. He did not touch her, not even by accident. It was Tom, not Wyatt, who gave her the first real foothold into the rhythm of the ranch. On her fourth morning, he found her standing at the edge of the vegetable patch, uncertain where her work was meant to begin and where his ended. "Wife's not the same as hired help," he said, not unkindly, handing her a hoe. "Do as much or as little as you please out here. Only thing I ask is you tell me plain if something's wanting, instead of managing quiet and letting it wear on you." It was the longest speech he'd given her since her arrival, and she turned it over in her mind the rest of the day, surprised by how much she wanted to hold him to it. She tried, that same week, teaching Wyatt to identify a rattlesnake's rattle from a locust's hum at a safe distance, a skill she'd traded for eggs from a trapper's daughter back at the asylum. And though Wyatt refused to stand close enough to learn it properly, he listened from the porch rail with his back turned, which Cora understood by then was as much attention as he was willing to spend on her without conceding anything. One evening, mending by lamplight, she heard Wyatt's feet stop in the doorway. He watched her hands move the needle through Tom's shirt with the same attention he gave horses being broken. "You sew fast," he said. 4 words. The first he'd spoken to her directly. "Practice," Cora said, keeping her voice light. "Mended for half the asylum. You learn to move quick when there's 30 children going through their clothes." 30? Something in his voice. Disbelief. Maybe curiosity. "Some years more," Cora said. He didn't answer again, only stood a moment longer before retreating down the hall. But Cora sat with the needle still in her hand, feeling something in her chest loosen. Not trust, not yet. But the first door left open a crack. It was Hank who brought a letter in from town 2 days later, and Tom's face changed reading it at the kitchen table. "Victor Lowe," he said, folding it once, twice, like a man trying to make bad news smaller. "Wants to come out and discuss the note in person. Says he'd rather not wait for harvest to talk terms." "When?" Cora asked. "End of the week." Tom looked toward the window, toward Wyatt's small shape crossing the yard with a bucket too big for him. "Man hasn't set foot on this place since Eleanor died. Doesn't do anything without a reason." "What kind of reason?" Tom didn't answer right away. He set the letter on the table and rubbed his jaw the way he did when a thing sat heavy on him. "Eleanor's brother," he said finally. "Bank president in town. Blames me some for how she went. Doctor was 2 hours out by wagon the night she took the fever, and by the time he arrived it was already past helping. Victor's never said it plain, but he's thought it plain enough, every time he's looked at me since." "That's a hard thing to carry," Cora said, "for both of you." "Harder for him, maybe. He didn't have a boy to keep him tethered to living through it." Tom looked toward the window again. "I expect he'll find a way to blame you too, for being here at all. Man like that needs somewhere to put the grief, or it'll eat him from the inside out." "I've been blamed for things I didn't do before," Cora said. "I know how to stand still under it." Something in Tom's face eased slightly, though he didn't smile. "I believe you do," he said. "Still, I'd rather you didn't have to, in my house." Cora didn't ask more. She was beginning to guess the shape of it, and she didn't like it. But she noted, too, the way he'd said "in my house," as though her comfort there had already become something he considered his responsibility to protect, not merely his arrangement to manage. Victor Lowe came to Sweetgrass Ranch on a gray afternoon, driving his own buggy, a leather folder tucked under one arm. He did not remove his hat. Cora had learned enough by then to know who he was before Tom said his name. A man who had never remarried after his own wife's early death, who poured what warmth he had left into his sister's memory and let the rest of himself go hard and careful. "Calloway," Victor said. "Thought it best I came myself." His eyes moved to Cora on the porch, then to Wyatt in the yard, and something in his face sharpened. "You're welcome to sit," Tom said, gesturing toward the porch chairs, civil despite everything in his posture that said otherwise. "I won't be staying that long." Victor's eyes went to Cora again, lingering this time in a way that made her chin come up half an inch. This is the one the society sent you then. Younger than I pictured. Old enough to marry, same as anyone, Cora said evenly. I'll thank you to say what you came to say, Mr. Lowe. Same as Tom's asked. Say what you came to say, Tom said. The note comes due at harvest. Half the herd stands as collateral. Victor opened the folder as though the paper inside made the next part easier. I've spoken to the other men on the stockman's board. There's concern, real concern, that this household isn't the stable place a boy needs. A hasty marriage to a stranger sent by charity. A note, 2 years unpaid. I'd be failing my sister's memory if I didn't say what half this county's already saying, quiet. Say it plain then, Tom said, his voice gone flat and hard. If the note isn't settled by harvest, the bank takes the west pasture and half the herd, as agreed, and I intend to petition the territorial court that Wyatt's welfare would be better served under different guardianship until this household proves itself settled. Different guardianship, Tom repeated, the words landing like stones dropped in a still pond. Meaning what exactly, Victor? You? A man who hasn't spent a single hour alone with that boy since his mother's funeral? Meaning whatever the court decides is best for him, Victor said, though something flickered behind his eyes that suggested he hadn't thought the matter through quite that far. I'd rather it not come to that. It's within your power to see that it doesn't. The yard went still. Wyatt's hand froze on the fence rail, his face gone pale and frightened. Cora stepped down off the porch before she'd decided to. Mr. Lowe, her voice came out steadier than she felt. You buried your sister 2 years ago, and I am sorry for it, truly sorry. But I did not come to this ranch to steal anything from her memory or her son. I came because I was asked, and I stayed because I chose to. If you mean to use that boy's fear to punish a grief you haven't finished grieving yourself, you'll have to go through me to do it. Victor's jaw tightened. Whatever he'd expected from her, it wasn't this. She's the grievance in part, he said, though his eyes stayed on Cora. Then the grievance stands where I'm standing, Cora said, and I don't plan on moving. Tom crossed to stand beside her, shoulders nearly touching. You heard her. Petition the court if you mean to, Victor. But you'll find this household a good deal steadier than you're hoping, and you'll find her a good deal harder to frighten than you're counting on. Victor's eyes flicked between them, and for a moment something almost like doubt crossed his face. Then it was gone. He climbed back into his buggy without another word and drove off, dust hanging in the still air long after his wheels had faded. Wyatt crossed the yard slowly and pressed himself against Cora's side, his small hand finding a fistful of her skirt. He can't take me, he said, not quite a question, his voice thin with a fear Cora recognized from her own childhood. Cora knelt and put her hand over his. Your father's not going to let that happen, she said, and neither am I, not for one single day. That night, after Wyatt had finally been coaxed to sleep, Tom found Cora still awake at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee gone cold. He sat across from her without being asked, which he had not done before. You didn't have to step off that porch today, he said. Could have let me handle him alone. I know I didn't have to, Cora said. I did it anyway. Something that might have been the beginning of a smile moved at the corner of his mouth. Seems to be a habit of yours. Only when the alternative is standing quiet while someone decides what I'm worth without asking me first. She looked at him over the rim of her cup. I've had enough of that to last a lifetime, Tom. I'd rather take my chances speaking plain. He was quiet a moment, turning his own cup slowly on the table. I'm glad of it, he said finally. Glad you spoke plain today. I don't know that I've thanked you properly. He didn't reach for her hand. Not yet. But he didn't look away either. And the silence between them held something neither of them was ready to name out loud. The quilting circle at Prairie Light Chapel met every third Thursday, and Tom insisted, gently but firmly, that Cora attend regardless of what had happened at the ranch. Best way to answer talk is to stand plain in front of it, he said, not hide from it. Cora suspected the truer reason was that a wife who stayed hidden would only feed more talk, but she went without argument, her sewing basket in hand. Word of Victor's visit had clearly outpaced her into the room. A dozen women sat around the frame, needles flashing, but the flashing slowed the moment she stepped through the door. Mrs. Pruitt set the tone within the first quarter hour. "That's fine work," she said of the shawl on Cora's arm, pitched for the whole room to hear. Surprising for someone who's already got Victor Lowe threatening court over her. Cora kept her hand steady on her needle. "I've sewn since I was young, ma'am. Necessity teaches quick." She said nothing about Victor. She'd learned already that nothing offered up could not be twisted. "I hear Victor Lowe's taken a personal interest in your household," Mrs. Pruitt pressed, when the first attempt hadn't landed the way she'd hoped. "Man doesn't usually trouble himself so, unless he's got good cause." "Then I expect you'll hear the truth of it same as everyone, when there's truth to tell," Cora said, and turned back to her stitching as though the matter had already closed. Agnes Whitcomb, the Reverend's wife, steered the talk toward the harvest social. But a younger woman, Faith Turner, settled in beside Cora and asked, with real curiosity, how she'd learned to set so fine a stitch. "My mother always said a woman's needlework tells you more about her patience than her prayers do," Faith said, smiling, and Cora found herself smiling back despite the tightness still sitting in her chest. Not every voice in the circle had decided what to make of her yet. Cora held on to that the rest of the afternoon like something kept warm in a pocket. Outside, gathering her basket to leave, she heard the rest anyway. Mrs. Pruitt's voice lowered, but not lowered enough. "Man buries one wife and marries the first name a charity society sends him. And now there's talk of the boy being taken from him besides. What's that say about his judgment, I ask you? Say what you like about his judgment," came Agnes Whitcomb's voice, unexpectedly firm. "But I've called on that house twice since she arrived, and I've never seen Wyatt Calloway laugh so much in 2 years. Seems to me that ought to count for something, whatever Victor Lowe wants the court to think." A murmur of agreement, hushed the moment Tom's wagon appeared at the lane's end. Cora climbed up beside him without a word, her jaw tight. Tom read her stillness and didn't ask what had been said. He only reached over and rested his hand briefly over hers before taking up the reins again. "They talked about the note," Cora said finally. "About Victor. About me." "They talk about everything," Tom said. "Only crop this county's ever short on rain." A ghost of dry humor. Then, more seriously, "You don't answer to them, Cora. Not for the note. Not for marrying me. Not for anything they've decided about you before they gave you a chance to prove it wrong." She looked over, surprised by the certainty in his voice, by the use of her given name, the first time without the miss in front of it. "And what have you decided?" she asked, "watching me stand up to Victor in your own yard?" "That I was wrong to think a stranger couldn't make this place feel less empty," Tom said. "That's the whole of it." Cora studied his profile against the darkening fields, the set of his jaw, the way his hands stayed loose and sure on the reins, despite everything sitting on him. "You don't strike me as a man who says things he doesn't mean," she said. I try not to be. He glanced over at her, quick, then back to the road. Meant every word I've said to you since you stepped off that wagon, Cora. Even the ones I probably shouldn't have. Which ones shouldn't you have said? A faint, rare smile touched his mouth. Wouldn't be much use telling you now, would it? You'd only go collecting them. He didn't elaborate further, and she didn't ask him to, but she carried the exchange home like something warm held against a cold ride, turning it over long after they'd reached the ranch, and for the first time since arriving at Sweetgrass Ranch, she let herself believe she might belong to it, and to him if he'd let her. Tom came in from the barn one evening, saw Cora mending by lamplight in a hard kitchen chair, and said without preamble, "You should use Eleanor's chair. Your back'll thank you for it come winter." "You're sure?" she said. Not quite a question. He crossed the room, rested a hand on the chair's worn arm, then lifted the lavender shawl from its back, the first time she'd seen him touch it, and folded it away in the cedar chest at the foot of his own bed. She'd have wanted someone using it. I've been afraid of it 2 years. Guess it's past time one of us wasn't. He gestured, almost shy. Go on. Cora sat. Wyatt appeared in the doorway, drawn by the lamplight. That's Mama's chair, he said. Not accusing, just naming it. It was, Tom said gently. Cora's using it now. That's all right, isn't it? Wyatt climbed onto the chair's wide arm without asking, the way children do when a thing has quietly become safe. You can keep it, he said, as though granting a great favor, which, Cora understood, throat tight, he was. Tom lingered in the doorway a moment after Wyatt had wandered off to bed, watching Cora settle deeper into the chair by lamplight. Looks right, he said. You sitting there. Didn't expect it to, if I'm honest. Thought it'd feel like watching a stranger wear Eleanor's coat. He shook his head slightly. Doesn't feel like that at all. What does it feel like? Cora asked. Needle paused mid-stitch. Feels like the house finally caught up to what it's supposed to be, Tom said. And then, as though startled by his own honesty, cleared his throat and said goodnight before she could answer, leaving her sitting in the lamplight, with her heart beating a little faster than the moment strictly called for. 3 nights later, the lamb came, orphaned, caught in wire along the creek fence, one leg cut deep. Wyatt heard the thin cry first and came running from the barn loft. She's hurt bad, Hank said, laying her near the stove. Might not make it through the night. Cora knelt beside the animal without deciding to, hands already moving toward the wound. Bring me the carbolic and clean rags. Wyatt fetched the bottle before she'd finished asking, moving like he'd been waiting his whole life to be useful for something that mattered. They worked through the evening, Cora cleaning the wound, while Wyatt held the lamb's head against his knees, murmuring to it in a voice she'd never heard from him before. Soft, unguarded. I'm not letting you die out here, he told it. Not after what happened to... He stopped himself, jaw tight. Cora didn't ask him to finish. By midnight, the wound was bound, the lamb sleeping. Wyatt refused bed until Cora promised to wake him if anything changed. In the morning, the lamb lived, and Wyatt named her Scout, because she found her way back when she shouldn't have been able to. You knew what to do, he said, watching Cora check the bandage. How'd you know? I know cloth and needle and thread, she said. A wound's not so different, if you think on it right. You clean it, you close it careful, you don't rush the healing. Same as most hurts, I've found. He considered this a long moment, then said, without quite meeting her eyes, You could help me feed her the bottle later, if you want. I'd like that, Cora said, keeping her voice light so as not to frighten the moment away. Behind them, unnoticed in the doorway, Tom watched his son and the woman who'd come to his house by letter, bent together over the small, stubborn, surviving thing on the kitchen floor, and felt something in his chest give way that he'd spent 2 years holding rigid against exactly this kind of hope. He didn't announce himself. He only stayed a moment longer, watching Wyatt's face, open, unguarded, lit with the particular pride of a child who has helped save something, and then found Cora's eyes over the boy's bent head. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Whatever passed between them in that look was plainer than any words he'd have known how to find, and Cora felt it land somewhere warm beneath her ribs, entirely different from the place Wyatt's slate-board words had once landed. Later, once Wyatt had finally been coaxed to his own bed, Tom found Cora still in the kitchen, cleaning the last of the carbolic from her hands. "You didn't have to sit up with him the whole night," he said. "I'd have kept watch." "I know I didn't have to," Cora said, echoing the words she'd used after Victor's visit. And this time Tom did smile, fully, for perhaps the first time since she'd arrived. "There's that habit of yours again," he said. "Seems to be working out for the lamb," Cora said. "And for your son." "And for me," Tom said quietly, before he could stop himself, and then busied his hands banking the stove so he wouldn't have to see whatever her face did in response to it. The petition arrived by rider a week later, official and cold, requesting Thomas Calloway appear before the territorial court to answer questions regarding the boy's welfare. Tom read it twice at the kitchen table, his knuckles whitening around the paper. "He went through with it," Cora said quietly. "He went through with it." Tom set the paper down and rubbed a hand over his face. "Court date set for 2 weeks after harvest. Gives us that long to prove the note's settled and the household steady, or he'll have his hearing regardless." Cora picked up the paper herself and read it twice, the way she'd once read every document that touched her life, searching for the small print that might change everything. "It says here he's asking for a formal review, not custody outright." "Court review's the first step toward custody, same as a note's the first step toward foreclosure," Tom said. "Man knows the law better than either of us. Wouldn't have filed it if he didn't think it'd move somewhere." "Then we make sure it moves nowhere," Cora said, more evenly than she felt. "We show the court exactly what this house is. Let them see it plain, same as I told Victor to his face." Tom looked at her a long moment, something steadying in his expression at her certainty, even if his own hadn't quite caught up to it yet. "All right," he said. "We show them plain." Word moved through Miles City faster than either of them could outrun it. At the Mercantile, Ida Turner pressed Cora's hand and said plainly she thought Victor Lowe had lost sight of his own grief in his hurry to blame someone for it. At the feed store, 2 men Cora didn't know fell silent when she entered, then resumed their talk in lowered voices once she'd passed. Tom took the wagon into town himself 2 days later to speak with a lawyer about the petition, a thin, tired man named Whitfield who kept an office above the saddlery and came home with little comfort to offer. "Says we've a fair chance if the note's settled and the household shows well by the court date," he told Cora that evening. "Says a lot depends on how the town speaks of us between now and then." He rubbed his eyes. "Man made it sound like our whole life's on trial, not just a debt." "Maybe it is," Cora said quietly. "Maybe it always was, the moment Victor decided to make it so." Wyatt heard more than either adult wanted him to. He came home from a rare trip to town with Hank, white-faced and silent, and it was Hank, apologetic, who explained, "A boy from the Pruitt family had told Wyatt at the general store that his father was going to lose him in court like a hand of cards." That night, Wyatt wouldn't eat. He sat rigid at the table, pushing beans across his plate, and when Cora reached to smooth his hair the way she'd started doing most evenings, he flinched away from her hand entirely, the first time in weeks. "Wyatt," Tom started. "Is it true?" the boy asked, not looking up. "Are you going to lose me in the court?" "No," Tom said, fierce and immediate. "Never. Not while I'm breathing." "Then why's everyone in town already talking like it's settled?" "Because talk moves faster than truth does, and always has," Cora said quietly, reaching for him again, slower this time. "That doesn't make the talk right, Wyatt. It just makes it loud." "How do you know it's not right?" His voice cracked on the question, small and raw. "You're not even really my mother." "Maybe the judge'll say the same thing that boy said." The words landed harder than the slate-board ones ever had, because this time they weren't hidden. They were aimed. Cora kept her hands steady in her lap, though it cost her something to do it. "Blood's not the only thing that makes a mother, Wyatt. I've been building this family same as you have, one ordinary day at a time. No court in the territory gets to erase that just because Victor Lowe wishes it away." Neither adult had an answer that would fully satisfy an 8-year-old's fear, and Wyatt seemed to understand that from the silence that followed. Something in his face closed, the careful trust of the past weeks folding back in on itself like a hand drawing shut. He asked to be excused and went to his room without finishing supper. Later, Cora heard faintly the scrape of chalk against slate through his door. She didn't go to see what he'd written. She had a fair guess already, and this time the guess frightened her more than it had the first time. Rain had fallen steady for 2 days when Cora went to check on Wyatt before bed and found his covers thrown back, the window latch undone, his boots gone. She woke Tom with 2 words, "Wyatt's gone," and watched the color drain from his face before he was even fully upright. They found his tracks leading toward Willow Creek. "Fishing camp," Tom said, already reaching for his coat. "Last place Eleanor took him before she passed. He goes there when he's troubled." He paused at the door. "Cora, did he say anything these last days?" "He asked if it was true, about the court, and whether I was really his mother," Cora said, guilt cracking her voice for the first time. "I told him blood wasn't the only thing that made a family. I thought I was helping him. I should have seen how frightened he still was underneath it." No time for should-haves. Tom was already moving toward the barn for lanterns and rope, though his hand found her shoulder for one brief, steadying second on the way past. "We'll find him, both of us together. That's the only should that matters right now." Hank appeared at the barn door, already saddling his own horse without being asked, his young face set grim in the lantern light. "I'll ride for the Hendersons," he said. "Their spread sits closer to the fishing camp from the east side. More eyes on that creek's better than fewer." "Go," Tom said, and Hank was gone into the rain before the word had finished leaving his mouth. They rode out into the wet dark, the creek's voice growing louder and angrier with every mile. Cora, who'd spent long stretches of her childhood tracking lost buttons by candlelight, read the ground the way she'd read a hem gone crooked. A broken branch at boy height, a boot print half filled with rain, meaning recent, not old. Tom followed her lead without question, some new respect entering his voice each time she proved right. "There!" Cora called once, pointing to a scuffed patch where the grass had been pressed flat and then sprung half back. He slowed here, maybe stopped to catch his breath. Tom didn't ask how she knew. He'd stopped questioning it 3 signs back. Twice the lantern caught nothing but empty, water-slicked grass, where Cora had felt certain the trail would continue, and both times panic rose in her chest before she forced it back down and cast wider, working the ground in slow circles the way she'd once searched a dark dormitory floor for a dropped button that meant the difference between a mended dress and a torn one. "If anything happens to that boy," Tom said once, more to the dark than to her, his voice raw in a way she'd never heard from him, "I don't know that I'd survive it a second time." Cora didn't offer empty comfort. She only reached over in the saddle and gripped his arm once, hard, and kept moving forward. The creek's roar grew louder still, swallowing the sound of their own horses' hooves, until even shouting his name felt useless against it. Cora's lantern arm ached from holding it steady in the wind, but she didn't lower it. Somewhere out there, a frightened boy was watching for exactly this small, stubborn light. They found Wyatt at last on a spit of ground the creek hadn't yet claimed, soaked through, the water already lapping at its edges. "I didn't want to be there when he came for me," Wyatt said, crying, before either of them could speak. "I thought if I hid good enough, maybe he'd forget." Tom was off his horse and wading in before Cora could say a word, gathering his son up against his chest with both arms. "I've got you," he said, his voice cracking open in a way Cora had never heard from him. "No one is taking you anywhere. Not Victor, not the court, not anyone living." Wyatt sobbed into his father's shoulder. Tom carried him back through the water with Cora steadying them both from the bank, her lantern held high, her own heart hammering in her throat. When they reached solid ground, none of them stepped back from each other. They stood together in the rain and lantern light. 3 people who had, without any of them quite noticing the moment it happened, become inseparable. "We're going home," Tom said to both of them at once. "All 3 of us. Together." They met Hank and 2 Henderson boys coming the other way along the creek path, lanterns bobbing through the rain, and the relief on all their faces when they saw Wyatt upright and breathing was plain enough that no one bothered hiding it. Hank rode close enough to press a dry blanket into Cora's hands without a word, and she wrapped it around Wyatt's shoulders as Tom carried him, grateful beyond speaking for neighbors who'd ridden out into a flooding night for a boy who wasn't even their own. They rode back slow, Wyatt wrapped in Tom's coat before him in the saddle. Inside, the fire built high, dry clothes found, the fear working itself out through ordinary motion, hanging wet coats, boiling water, checking small fingers and toes for lasting harm. "You're not really mad at me?" Wyatt asked once, small and hoarse, as Cora toweled his hair dry by the fire. "I'm not mad," Cora said. "I was scared half out of my mind, which isn't the same thing at all. You gave us a fright tonight, Wyatt Calloway, but you're not in trouble for being frightened yourself. Only for running off alone into a flooding creek instead of coming to either one of us with it." "I didn't think you'd want to hear it," he admitted. "Not from me." "I will always want to hear it," Cora said. "Whatever it is, that's what family means, if it means anything at all." Wyatt fell asleep fast after that, tucked near the hearth. It was there in the low firelight that Tom finally said the thing he'd been circling for weeks. "I've been afraid of loving anyone again the way I loved Eleanor," he said. "Losing her nearly broke me clean in half. I told myself I'd keep this marriage practical. But watching you tonight, reading that ground like you'd been trained your whole life for it, I understood I'd already broken my own rule and never let myself admit it." "Admit what, Tom?" "That I love you." His voice shook around the words. "Not the way I loved Eleanor. That was its own thing, and I won't pretend otherwise, but something just as real. He looked down at his hands, roughened by years of work, then back up at her. Mom, I've loved you since before I knew to call it that. Since the day you stood off that porch and told Victor Lowe he'd have to go through you. Maybe before, if I'm honest with myself, which I haven't been in some time. I should have said it before now. Cora crossed the space between them and took his hand. I've been afraid, too, of being someone's convenience, of loving a house and a boy and a man who might wake up one day and see me as nothing more than the woman a letter sent him. Her voice caught. But I don't feel that fear tonight. Not after watching you carry him out of that water like he was the only thing in this world that mattered. He is, Tom said. You both are. He pressed her hand against his chest, over the steady, uneven beat of his heart. Whatever comes with Victor in the court, I want you here. Not because it's practical, because I choose it, same as you chose to come. The kiss that followed was unhurried, the kind shared between two people who'd already survived the hardest part of finding each other. It was Wyatt's voice, sleep thick, that broke the quiet a moment later. Are you going to stay forever now? Cora knelt beside him, brushing damp hair back from his forehead. For as long as you and your father will have me. Wyatt considered this, even half asleep. Good. Then, quiet enough she nearly missed it, he said the word he'd been circling for months without knowing he was ready to land on it. Not Cora, not ma'am, but the one word that mattered. And closed his eyes again before either adult could answer. Cora pressed her hand to her mouth. Tom's arm came around her shoulders. The three of them stayed by the fire long after the rain had softened to a gentler sound against the roof. We'll tell him properly in the morning, Tom said eventually, low, watching his son sleep. That we mean this. That it isn't just paper anymore. He already knows, Cora said. Children always know before we think they do. She leaned her head against Tom's shoulder, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing beneath her cheek. I used to think a family was something you were born into or you weren't. That the door only opened once at the start, and after that you spent your whole life outside it looking in. She was quiet a moment. I don't believe that anymore either. Tom pressed a kiss to the crown of her head, unhurried, and for a long while neither of them said anything further. There was nothing left that needed saying, only the fire settling low in the grate and the rain finally giving way to a clear, cold quiet outside the windows. The weeks after the flood passed differently, steadier, marked by small certainties. Wyatt used the word he'd landed on by the fire, as though he'd never once hesitated over it. Tom no longer stopped himself from reaching for Cora's hand across the table. But the court date held its ground on the calendar, unmoved by any of it, and the note still loomed at harvest. Lawyer Whitfield came out to the ranch himself to prepare them, spreading his papers across the kitchen table while Wyatt watched from the doorway with Scout at his heels. Court'll want to see the boys' schooling kept up, his welfare tended, the household finances sound, Whitfield said. And they'll want character testimony. Neighbors willing to speak plain about what they've seen here. He glanced toward Wyatt. Might be the boy himself says more good on your behalf than any of us could manage. I'll say it, Wyatt offered immediately, straightening. I'll tell the judge every bit of it. Tom's hand found the back of his son's neck, warm and steadying. We'll see if it comes to that, he said, but I'm proud of you for offering. Ida Turner came out to the ranch herself, unannounced, the week before the hearing. Victor means to bring half the county's opinion to that courtroom, she said, standing in the yard with her hands on her hips. Seems only right the other half should have a say, too. She'd already spoken to a dozen families. Agnes Whitcomb, the Reverend, even Faith Turner's young husband, who'd heard Wyatt talk about Scout the Lamb at the Mercantile and hadn't stopped smiling about it since. "You don't have to do this," Tom said. "I know I don't," Ida said. "I'm doing it anyway." She glanced toward the barn, where Wyatt's laughter carried on the wind. Man like Victor forgets sometimes that grief doesn't give him the right to spend everyone else's happiness settling his own accounts. Someone ought to remind him plainly, and it might as well be a dozen of us saying it together. That evening, once Ida's wagon had rattled back down the lane, Cora found Tom standing at the fence line, watching the herd settle for the night. "You've gone quiet," she said, coming to stand beside him. "Just thinking on what happens if it doesn't work," Tom admitted. "If the judge sides with him regardless of what the town says." "Then we'll face it," Cora said. "Together, same as we've faced everything since that night at the creek." She slipped her hand into his. "I didn't come here looking for an easy life, Tom. I came looking for one worth living. I've got that now, whatever the court decides." 2 days before the hearing, Victor came to the ranch one final time, alone, on foot, without his buggy. Cora saw him coming and did not retreat to the house. "I'm not here to threaten anything," Victor said, stopping short of the porch. "I came to see it for myself. Whatever it is everyone in town keeps telling me about." His eyes moved over the mended fence, the healthy herd, Wyatt's laughter drifting from the barn, where he was teaching Scout to follow at heel. Something in his face, hard for 2 years, cracked slightly at the edges. "You could still call off the hearing," Cora said, not unkindly. "I could," Victor said. "I haven't decided." He looked at her a long moment. "My sister would have liked you, I think. It galls me some to say it, but she would have." "Then why keep fighting us?" Cora asked. "If some part of you already knows that." Victor was quiet long enough that Cora thought he wouldn't answer at all. "Because if I stop," he said finally, "I have to admit I've spent 2 years being angry at the wrong thing. Easier to blame your father, or blame you, than to blame a fever that came in the night and took her before any doctor could reach her. Anger needs somewhere to stand. Grief just needs somewhere to fall, and I never did find that place." "Maybe this could be it," Cora said, gesturing toward the ranch behind her. The mended fence, the boys' laughter, the ordinary evening settling gold over the fields. Not the anger. The other thing. He left without saying more. Cora watched him go and felt, for the first time, something less than dread about what the courtroom might hold. The hearing never happened. Victor withdrew the petition 2 days before it was set, filing a single line with the court clerk. Circumstances no longer warrant review. He never explained further, not that day nor any day after, but he sent word to the stockman's board recommending they extend the note's terms by a full season, citing the ranch's clear stability. Whitfield brought the news out himself, grinning wider than Cora had yet seen on his tired face. "Man withdrew it clean," he said. "No conditions, no strings. I've seen grudges die harder over a fence line dispute. Whatever changed his mind, I'd count it a mercy and not question it too closely." Wyatt, listening from the porch steps, let out a whoop loud enough to startle Scout into a stiff-legged trot around the yard, and for once nobody told him to quiet down. Tom rode into Miles City the morning the note would have come due regardless, Cora beside him, and found half the county gathered outside Yellowstone Stockman's Bank all the same. Ida Turner, Agnes Whitcomb, a dozen others who'd meant to stand up in a courtroom, that no longer needed them, standing in the street instead, simply to be counted. Half this county's watched you two build something steady out at that ranch, Ida said. We weren't about to let one bitter man's grief undo it, hearing or no hearing. Inside the bank, the stockman's board confirmed what Victor's letter had already promised. The note extended a full season. The terms softened in light of the household's proven stability. Tom signed the papers with a hand that wasn't quite steady, and when he stepped back out into the street where Cora waited, he didn't say a word. He only pulled her into an embrace right there in front of half the county, careless of who saw, and held on until she laughed against his shoulder and told him people were staring. Let them stare, Tom said. Man's allowed to hold his wife in the street, same as any other. That evening, back at Sweetgrass Ranch, Tom and Cora stood together on the porch while Wyatt chased Scout across the yard in the long gold light. The rocking chair sat empty in the window behind them. Cora had taken to sitting on the porch steps most evenings now, close beside Tom, watching the boy and the ranch and the wide Montana sky together. You came to us by a letter, Tom said. I used to think that meant something smaller than what we've built. A practical thing, an arrangement. And now I think the truest families are the ones we choose on purpose and keep choosing every ordinary day after. He took her hand, the gesture no longer careful or uncertain, simply sure. You never had one of your own growing up. I hope you know you've got one now. Not because a letter sent you here, because you stayed and you chose it, same as we chose you. Cora leaned her head against his shoulder, watching Wyatt call the lamb's name across the darkening yard, and understood that she had spent 18 years believing family was something given to other people by accident of birth, and had needed, instead, to travel 12 miles east of Miles City to learn it could also be built, plank, by people who simply decided, every single day, to keep choosing each other. Winter would come again soon enough, hard and long the way it always did in that country, and there would be other troubles after this one. There always were, on a working ranch. But Cora no longer met the thought of hardship with the old, familiar bracing she'd carried since childhood, the readiness to be sent along to wherever came next. She met it instead the way Tom did, the way Wyatt was learning to, steady and certain of the ground beneath her at last. Cora, Tom said, drawing her attention back to him. Yes? Marry me again, he said. And when she laughed, surprised, he only shrugged, unashamed. Properly this time. Not a letter and a stranger's signature. A real wedding, with the whole county there to see it. If you'll have me twice over. Cora looked at him a long moment. This man, who'd once looked at her like a debt he intended to honor, and now looked at her like a woman he simply loved, and found she didn't need to think it over at all. Yes, she said, I'll have you twice over, Thomas Calloway, and every day after that, for as long as you'll keep choosing me back.
This was never really a story about a not come due, or a court day that never came, or even a storm that nearly took a boy from the people who loved him. It was a story about a young woman who spent her whole life being sent whenever she was told to go, and finally, on a ranch 12 miles east of nowhere, found a family worth sending her out for. I would love to know, where are you watching from tonight? What rub your city and stay below. If this one found its way into you, consider giving it a like and subscribe for more. There's another story on the way. Thank you for spending time with us.